This is the Reporter's Notebook, hosted by Elaine Shane.
Hello everyone, I'm Bryce Anderson with an entry in the DTN Reporter's Notebook regarding the winter weather forecast. Conditions really don't look too bad. I'm visiting today with my colleague Mike Palmerino to discuss some of the big weather drivers for this coming winter season. Mike, as we think about the winter season, how does it appear in terms of just general conditions, especially over the Midwest and the Plains? It doesn't really look like too harsh a situation at this point, does it?
No, it really doesn't, Bryce. You know, we've been looking very closely at what goes on in the higher latitudes. You know, we've been talking a lot in the last few years about blocking or lack of blocking, meaning basically, you know, is there significant amounts of high pressure in the higher latitudes between Alaska and Greenland, or is there not? And clearly that's having a huge, or it has had huge impacts on how our weather patterns go. And in a nutshell, the more of that blocking or ridging there is up in those higher latitudes, generally the more severe our winter weather will be, and the less there is, the less severe it'll be. And clearly right now, it's leaning towards the less blocking, less severe scenario.
And with that, just a bottom line is that snowfall is kind of not a real big feature to think about, I guess, right?
Well, you know, that could go either way, because clearly, you know, snowfall, it doesn't have to be all that cold to snow, and even if temperatures are normal or even a little bit above normal, you know, it would be cold enough to snow in parts of those northern plains, upper Midwest areas, you know, as we go into the heart of the winter season. So I'm not so sure about that, because the patterns, even though they look to be rather benign at this point, could have fair amounts of moisture in the climatologically favored areas, you know, namely the southern and eastern Corn Belt, Delta, that south-central part of the country. So I would not rule out, you know, especially in parts of the upper Midwest Great Lakes, as we go into the heart of winter, that there could be some significant snowfall despite the lack of any extreme cold.
But for really getting locked up like we've seen in past winters, it doesn't appear that things are running in that neighborhood, does it?
No, not at all. Matter of fact, I think that when you do see an occasional breakdown of the pattern towards more severe, it won't be all that long-lived, and things should bounce out of it rather quickly and become much more benign. So no, in terms of anything locking into a, you know, just a long, cold, severe winter, there's no indications of that happening at all at this point.
One final question has to do with the Pacific. Looks like the Pacific is running just neutral in all respects. Does that offer any real signal on how the winter pattern is going to shape up?
Well, not really. It clearly, you know, if we were in some sort of an El Niño, then we could be fairly confident that it would be a rather mild winter and potentially a rather stormy winter across parts of the southern tier of the United States. But I think in this scenario right now, with the Pacific being a non-player for the entire winter, the way it looks at this point, you know, you've clearly got to look back at those higher latitudes, and the ability to block up this pattern or not is really going to dictate the winter patterns.
Mike Palmerino, thanks very much.
Thank you, Bryce.
Again, comments from Mike Palmerino, and that is this entry in the DTN Reporter's Notebook. I'm Bryce Anderson, and thanks for joining us.
This has been the Reporter's Notebook from the DTN Progressive Farmer Newsroom.